my darlings. I'm back with UAP Witnesses Part 2, and I hope you got a chance to enjoy the first one. So here's the sequel, and I want to thank all of you for being here with me and listening and enjoying these true UFO accounts from witnesses. I want to say love you to a special someone who's out there, if she's listening, and she knows who she is. And I want to thank all of you, my subscribers, for sticking with me and waiting patiently for me to come back. So, I'm going to jump right into these true UFO witness accounts, and you let me know what you think about these stories in the comments below. So my first one is this takes place in Australia and Oceania, and this witness is a woman. Here's what she witnessed. Hope you enjoy. Australia. The witness is a woman. I don't wish to give my name. I was a teacher in South Australia for many years. In 1976, I was hoovering my sitting room floor at about noon. Suddenly, I felt quite ill and thought I was going to be sick, so I sat down on the sofa to see if the sick feeling would subside. I then saw that I was not alone. There were 3 strange little people standing alongside the sofa, just looking at me. I froze with fear, as I had never seen anything like them before, not even in films. 2 of them were short and fat, about 4'4" and a half feet tall, with broad faces and enormous black eyes, but with only a hint of where a nose or mouth might have been, almost like a pencil drawing. They had wispy bits of brown hair at the back of their heads, and they were wearing brown shrouds or robes. These beings, I knew instinctively, were the workers. The other being was female, thin and about 5 feet tall. She wore a black shroud and had black wispy hair at the back of her head. Her face was very elongated, with huge dark piercing eyes. Like the others, there was just a hint of where a nose or mouth could have been. The thin one started to speak to me with her mind and told me I was going with them. I said in my own mind that I would not go. Somehow this telepathic communication seemed perfectly normal at the time, and I felt quite comfortable communicating like that. I was very frightened, but I could still communicate and understand. I was so frightened because it seemed they were pulling me away with their minds. I had to struggle to resist them. At one point, I remember falling down and trying to crawl towards the door. I must have fainted or something because I have no memory from that point onwards. When my husband came home at the unusual time, I realized I had lost about 4 hours. I still have no explanation for this experience. Wow. So what do you think was going on with that lady? My goodness. Well, that sounded like fun. You get little people in your living room trying to drag you out with their minds. That happens every day. But on to the next one. Now this witness is a man, and this also takes place in Australia. My name is Patrick Knowles. My family and I have been the victim of a media frenzy since first telling our story. Now, I very much regret making it public. We have experienced unrelenting ridicule, being described as crazy or accused of making up a hoax just for money, and so on. But we only wanted people to know what happened to us. We weren't after anything. It happened on January 20th, 1988. My mother, 2 brothers, and I were driving from Perth to Melbourne. We were going to drive straight through in shifts, and we planned to cross the desert at night when the heat wasn't so bad. About 2:30 a.m., we were in the Nullarbor Plain. We stopped for petrol and switched drivers. Sean was driving, and I was in the front seat next to him. The road was empty. Suddenly, we saw a bright yellow light up ahead, and Sean slowed down. As we got closer, the yellow light seemed to be emanating from an egg-shaped object hovering just above ground level. We thought we might be seeing things, but then a caravan passed going the other way, and it swerved sharply to avoid the luminous egg. The closer we got to it, the more we realized it wasn't a normal vehicle or a road signal or anything like that. Sean swerved to avoid it, and we continued on, leaving it behind. Suddenly, the object started towards us. It appeared to accelerate with tremendous speed. We drove on, and it literally chased us. The faster we went to get away from it, the faster this object went after us. I reckon we reached a speed of 125 miles per hour, but it caught up in a matter of seconds. Then Sean made a sudden U-turn and headed back west in the direction of the petrol station. The UFO also turned around. I don't know how the hell it was flying, because it didn't have any wings or anything like wings. It just kept coming after us. Sean made another fast U-turn, heading back toward Melbourne again, but the UFO turned as well and kept pace with the car. In the back seat, everyone was scared. The dog started barking and whining. Then suddenly, we were hit. It shot a beam of light out and punctured our back tire. The back tire was on fire. We started sliding across the road. I realized if we braked, we would have to confront the UFO. But Sean didn't have any choice. Then it landed on the roof of the car and picked the car up. It lit up the car like a microwave. The heat was intense. Our hair was standing straight up, and we felt really funny, like we were being dehydrated. It was awful, frightening, like our brains were being sucked out. My fear was that I would be pulled out of my body. I put my hand out of the window and touched something spongy that burned my hand. I thought we were going to die. You could actually feel the car rising in the air. The car began to fill with a thick black fog. It was so hot, and all this soot, this junk started covering us. Our voices started changing. You know how a tape deck sounds when the batteries start to go flat? That's what it was like. Then I passed out. I came to when I heard a tremendous noise, like a bang, and our car suddenly dropped back to earth. Dawn was coming up. The thing just flew away. That was the last we saw of it. I had to change the tire, and we tried to clean out the black soot. There were marks on the roof of the car. As soon as we could, we drove fast to the nearest roadhouse. We were too shocked to talk for a while. Then we realized we had lost a couple of hours' time during the incident. We called the police. The funny thing was they were already looking for us. Someone, maybe the people in the caravan we passed, had phoned the police anonymously. Their report states that they witnessed our car being picked up off the road and shaken violently. They noticed the car was covered in black ash. The police inspected our car and noted the ash, the bad smell, and the dents on the roof. They were convinced something had occurred. They took us to the hospital where we were treated for burns and shock. But then the media got hold of the incident. I don't think a single reporter or journalist asked sensible questions or tried to console us for our fear. They just wanted to humiliate us. When our car was examined by forensic scientists, they found unexplained high concentrations of chlorine, an element not usually present in cars, animals, or the desert environment. My family does not need proof of this sort because we all know what we witnessed and what we went through that night. Wow. So what do you guys think about that one? I remember hearing about that story, and it sounded really, really weird. Whatever this thing was that picked their car up. This whole family, I think it was a mother and her boys. But you guys let me know what you thought about that one in the comments. That one is a very strange one. But on to the next one. Here is our next witness. This one takes place in Papua New Guinea. The witness is a boy. My name is Alex James. I live in Palapila Community, New Guinea, about 7 p.m. last Tuesday, November 6, 1999. I went with 4 friends to Palapila Community School for rugby practice. We were going back to our village after dark when we saw some bright lights approaching. There were a lot of people about, some coming back from bathing, and others were sitting around eating their dinners. When they saw the lights, they all ran inside and locked their doors, except for a few who were just stood and stared. As the UFO approached us, we heard no sound. The streetlights all dimmed, just like a torch when the batteries are failing. It hovered over the coconut palms and looked huge. It was oblong in shape. As it passed slowly overhead, my friends and I were almost frozen as we watched it. We felt as though we could not move or speak because we were so shocked by the sight. Pastium, Mitingum, God Papa, and Nampula Millennial, movie awesome Star Wars. The bottom of the UFO was oblong-shaped with very bright lights all around the edges, and the top was like a pyramid shape with lights around it also. Just bright white, no colors. It was huge and took over 30 minutes to pass by. We checked the time. When it was hovering over us, it seemed to be as bright as day. The whole place was lit up like bright daylight. That's how bright its lights were. Then the object just disappeared in the direction of the mountains near Vuvu. Well, that was a strange one. I hope I didn't butcher the young man's language. He said something here referring to Star Wars. I think he said Pastium me tingum, which means God Papa. And I think he said me tingum o movie awesome Star Wars. So I guess he he got so shocked he went into his language, his native tongue there. But I hope I didn't butcher it too much. But that is interesting. So what was that? I don't know. You guys let me know what you think. But here's the next one. This one takes place in New Zealand, and the witness is a woman. Here's her story. My name is Edith Perkins. At 8:30 p.m., Monday, March 30th, 1998, I was doing some chores in our backyard. This is in Bexley, just north of Christchurch, South Island, New Zealand. I saw something in the sky, like a capsule or cigar-shaped object. At first, it had a silver, whitish body with a dark gray forked tail. While I looked at it, it was just overhead, seeming to be coming closer. I was facing west. The rounded edges, front and back, of the object called my attention to it initially. Its size appeared to be about 10 centimeters long if held at arm's length. I suppose it was about 30,000 feet high, but it seemed very puzzling that there was no jet trail behind it. So I went indoors to fetch a pair of 7x35 binoculars. My husband joined me and our home care nurse. As we three watched, a very bright light completely covered the object. It did not happen as a flash of light. It seemed to start up and then finish with a burst of light. I was seeing a different rear design on the craft with a forked end to it, and the color was now dark gray. Another burst of light occurred, and the object presented a rim all around the craft, with either intermittent colored lights on the rim, or else the rim was composed of rotating colored lights. These were in tones of reddish orange. This object then flew out over Pegasus Bay towards the northeast. Man, I don't know what to say. These stories get weirder and weirder, but these are true accounts of what people have been seeing. I don't know what these are, but are they craft? Are they something spiritual? Or some form of like biomechanical? I don't know. You be the judge of it. But here's the next one. Now this one takes place in Hawaii, and the witness is a woman. And here's her story. My name is Glenna Heller. This happened 2 years ago. I live in an apartment on the southernmost tip of Kauai. We were no further than perhaps 20 feet from our apartment, just going home, when out of the west came an enormous ball of light, moving very, very fast. It was opaque white, yellow in the center, with many colors around the perispheres. It appeared to have a tail of light. No sound accompanied the object whatsoever, and it was very low to the ground, perhaps as much as 100 feet above our heads. As it reached nearly above us, it divided into 3 balls of light, all the same size and color. As it moved to the east and away from us, we saw it divide into 7 orbs. I telephoned a friend on the north end of the island and told her to go outside quickly. She described what she saw to me, and it was the same. Some 7 or so objects of light near the ground. It appeared to be circling the island. The following day, our newspaper read, mysterious light show with a full account of what we had seen, including the fact that a similar occurrence had been viewed on Hawaii's Big Island the night before. No explanation had been found for that sighting either. It was identical to what we had seen. Well, I don't know. These are some very interesting accounts. So some of them, they take different forms. Some of them are orbs. Some of them are like oblong shaped craft. But whatever these things, and they're so exotic in their different designs. So it's crazy. But here's the next one. And this one takes place in Europe. This is from a man in Poland. Here's his story. I am Dr. B. Plessick. The extraordinary event I am about to report was also witnessed by Mrs. E. Pluta and Messrs. G. Serzitsky and Olajic, J. Kaminsky, and G. Ladorf. On 5th September 1980, Mrs. Pluta, who was pregnant, began to experience labor pains, and the ambulance was called. She and I, plus the driver and stretcher bearer, were traveling along deserted country roads. Between Sustimin, Zalawak, and Dansky, when we encountered quite suddenly at 3:15 a.m. a huge crimson globe that came down out of the sky and paced the ambulance for about 45 minutes. As we were a team of professional medical workers, our first concern was for the safety of the mother and her baby, and we considered the UFO a distracting threat. For this reason, we did not get very emotional at the time. However, when we came to a level crossing, the two attendants in their hut were simply shaking with fear at the sight. We had to halt because the road was blocked by the huge crimson ball. To be more specific, this is what I believe we saw. At first, all of us in the ambulance saw the globe as a big red ball in the sky, some distance away. It looked larger than the full moon and was dark crimson in color. It immediately descended to treetop height and hovered about 500 meters from the ambulance. 1 second, it hung in the sky at about cloud level. The next, it was seen hovering between two trees, either side of the road, in the middle distance. All of us sensed the globe's ominous approach as it cruised towards us at a very low height, following the road. I was always aware that it was never exactly in the sky, but probably it was not very high above the ground at any time. As our ambulance approached the level crossing, so did the globe, and we each stopped there. The globe was less than a meter above the surface of the road. I got out to speak to the crossing attendants. I said, "Can you see what I see?" They said, "We've been observing it for some time." I went back to the ambulance and told the others. They could not help us at all. They're trembling with fear. At that point, Mrs. Pluta's labor contractions became more frequent, and we felt it was urgent to get to the hospital immediately. Since our path was blocked, I decided to call the police. I reported that there was an obstacle in the way and asked them to come immediately. "What kind of obstacle?" they asked. "A UFO," I replied. It was now 4:10 a.m., and all we could do was stay there and stare at the UFO. We had plenty of time to observe it in detail. Its surface displayed curved bands and stripes, with a multitude of black lines traversing up and down in irregular patterns. These clear-cut markings reminded me of veins inside the human body. The ambulance driver said they looked to him like a huge net. As we watched, parts of the surface changed color. There appeared to be orange-yellow patches on the deep crimson background. Then, the globe dropped to only about 10 centimeters above the road, constantly changing colors, pulsating, but always with dull, muted tones. Suddenly, it gave off a strong white light that was so bright it reflected on the surface of the road. Out of sheer exasperation, our driver flashed his headlights at it twice. Immediately, inexplicably, it simply vanished. It was 4:15 a.m. At 6:10 a.m., Mrs. Pluta gave birth to a daughter in the hospital. A careful examination of the whole area in daylight revealed nothing. Well, I'm glad that Mrs. Pluto was able to have her baby, but wow, whatever that was, that sounded menacing. But here's one more, and this one is from a man in Lithuania, I believe. And here's his account. Excuse me, because he has a last name is pretty long, so I hope I don't butcher it. Hello, I am Valentinas Lukahavchis, Chief of Police in Vilnius, Lithuania. Recently, I had to appear on the radio to explain that two policemen who had reported seeing something extraordinary were known to be reliable witnesses and were of sound and honest mind. There has been considerable public anxiety about this matter arising from what I consider to be media hysteria, but their official report. On June 26, 1996, the entire police force of Vilnius was put on alert. The two officers stated that they observed a round, shining object on the main Vilnius-Madukai route at around midnight, 10 kilometers from the capital city, near the village of Nimjis. The object was flashing bright and hovered 20 to 30 meters above the ground. At the same time, we could hear a strange sound, like electricity crackling, they said. The two men approached the UFO after watching it for almost half an hour. When they were some 50 meters from it, the object started to move upwards and away from them into the air, then accelerated towards Vilnius. At that point, an alert was put out, and van loads of rapid reaction force police and tracker dogs arrived on the scene, but the UFO had disappeared. We conducted official tests on the area's ground composition, measured the air's radiation, and took sound recordings. The grass in the area for 10 meters around where the UFO was reported to have been sighted was visibly flattened. So, what did you guys think about part 2? Are these stories getting weirder or what, huh? I hope you liked them. And also to that special someone, I hope she liked them as well. And I'll be back again with part 3. And you all let me know what you thought about this episode in the comments. And if you don't comment, that's cool. But let me know what you thought. And I'll be back with part 3 for you. I want to thank all of you for listening, and I really hope you like my voice. I know it's not really normal to like your own voice. I think my voice is tolerable, but I hope you like my narration, and I hope it's relaxing to you. But I'm glad you joined me with tonight's episode, and I hope I didn't butcher too many of the names or the languages or flub too much. I know I've been a while since I had done this, so I'm just now coming back, and I abandoned you guys, so I know maybe some of you are still pissed at me. But I'll be back with part 3, and if you haven't checked out part 1, please do. That one's interesting as well. But I'll be back again next week, and until you hear my voice again, good night, my darling.